A fugitive detective, missing witnesses, a stepson whose charges were dropped, a body in a tank, and 4,000 miles of searching. What really happened to Dee Warner, and will justice be given? We're such a genuine gem. Thank you for clicking on my video. I am Brooke Makenna, and here we focus on the victims over the killers every single time. If that is something you also feel passionate about, please subscribe down below, leave a comment and a thumbs up, and come back every single week for a new video. First, a moment for our sponsor, Incogni, who allows me to continue to tell these stories. Now, we focus on all sorts of protection here on this channel, but we often miss our online safety. From general privacy, scam attempts, identity theft, Incogni helps you protect yourself. And they can actually reach out to data brokers on your behalf because they know we all have the right to request that they delete information about us. These data brokers can hold things as scary as your address, your phone number, and even your social security number. In fact, I recently found out that someone tried to make an Amazon account with my name, and had I not gotten an email from Amazon, I would have no clue. So Incogni helps with these things. It surprised me how easily Incogni was. You basically just go on, create the account, and let Incogni do the work for you, and they can update you when they find things that they need to remove from the internet. So you can get ahead of the criminals trying to expose your information for stalking, scams, harassment, and other illegal activities. Don't let it be easy for people to find you with your address and your phone number just exposed online. Incogni actually has a brand new custom removal feature for the unlimited and family unlimited plans that allows you to point to a specific search site or website where your personal information is visible, and then they take care of it for you. I just know that protecting yourself online is important, and yet doing it yourself takes forever, so I love letting Incogni do it for me. And you can get an exclusive 60% off with my link at incogni.com/Brooke Mckenna and use code Brooke Mckenna. That's 60% off at incogni.com/Brooke Mckenna with the code Brooke Mckenna. Now let's get back to the story. So on April 25th of 2021, Dee Ann Warner was believed to be missing. It was Sunday, and her 28-year-old daughter Raquel had come over to see her mother and her stepfather Dale, as well as her 8-year-old little sister, who is Angelina. They all were going to have Sunday breakfast together. This is something that they always did. Family lived in Tecumseh, Michigan on Munger Street at their home and their farm. They had a lot of land. Dee and Dale had actually married back in 2006 and owned this farm business together. It was both of their second marriages. They met at a local company in agricultural sales, and they started to create these companies together. They started blending the children from their first marriages into this family, and then they welcomed Angelina together. Dee also had her very own trucking business. She was 53 years old, but that morning Raquel wouldn't be able to locate her mother at the home. No one was there at all. This was just after 9 a.m. and their usual Sunday routine was completely thrown off by this. Everybody, including Dee, Dale, Raquel, Angelina, Raquel's boyfriend, Raquel's children, all had breakfast at the home. After they had breakfast is usually when Raquel's boyfriend would go back to their home, which was only around the corner from the house. All the family lived very, very close. And then Dee and Raquel would actually take all of the kids and go grocery shopping. This was every single week, without a doubt. But Raquel showed up at the house and no one was there. The cooking had not started, and she had her own kids to feed, so she started cooking toast and eggs, and she could not stop thinking about how strange this all was. She started texting and calling her mother, but the calls were going directly to voicemail, and she was receiving no answers. Raquel knew that this was weird. Her mother never turned her phone off because she always wanted to be able to check with her friends and her family. And she had just talked to Dee last night. This was the plan for the next day. Inside the home, Raquel noticed that there were blankets on the couch, there were tissues everywhere, and upstairs, Dee's makeup bag and curling iron were gone, as well as her phone and her passport. Now, according to Raquel, Dee had two different cars, one that she parked in at the garage, and the other was parked 100 feet away at their office. So Raquel saw both of the cars were still there, and she went to Dee's office to see if possibly she was just working that Sunday, but she found no one there. Raquel then went home with her own family, greatly worried about her mother. You see, a lot of Dee's family lived within miles of each other on this rural farming land, but no one had seen her. Dee was said to be a tough, fearless mother. Raquel knew her as someone always on the move, always laughing and having fun. She always had something going on, and she was also a huge shopper, but she worked really hard for that money with her multiple businesses. She could also rip anyone to shreds if she needed to. She was tough, and she knew how to stand up for herself. Her son, Zach, who was also an adult, said that she would move mountains to make sure that her kids had anything that they wanted or needed. Dee's brother, Greg Hardy, said that she was always wanting to be the person to be able to handle whatever life threw at her. She was a problem solver, a social butterfly, and entrepreneurship was actually in her blood. So Dee's brother, Greg, was called by his wife, who had heard the news, and he was being asked if he had seen or spoken to Dee that day. Once he heard that they were looking for her, he tried to call her, couldn't get a hold of her, and he knew that was unusual as well. His wife then called him back once again a little while later, saying they were searching and could not find her anywhere, and he immediately knew that they should call the police. It would be a few hours later that Raquel would actually get a call from her stepdad, Dale, who was asking if she had seen her mother. She apparently was still not at the home. So Raquel asked Dale where Angelina was, their daughter, who was about 8 years old at this time, and he said that she was with a family friend and had been there since the day before. This only frightened Raquel more because she knew that if her mother had left for any reason, she would have taken Angelina. She took her wherever she went. So that evening, while Dee was still not in contact, Raquel had asked Dee's brother, Greg, to check the surveillance footage from around the property. They had this big property, so they also had cameras. But it showed nothing of significance at this point. And so that is when the family began to decide it was time to call the police. So they went to Dale and they told him that he needed to do this. He allegedly responded with, "I'll do it in the morning after I take Angelina to school." Now, Dee's family knew that that wasn't good enough. They were going to take it into their own hands, and they would call in Dee's disappearance that evening. Raquel would state that during her last conversation with her mother, which was that night prior, Dee had actually declared that she was leaving Dale for good. Now, Raquel made sure to add, when talking to the police, that this was common behavior. This was actually something that Dee would do, sort of leave Dale for a couple of days to cool down after a fight. However, she never stopped speaking to her children, and she always took Angelina. She never went no contact, especially for this long. But the night prior, Raquel was asking her mother if there was anything that could fix their relationship. She was saying that maybe if her mother sold the trucking company, if that could fix the marriage. And Dee allegedly said, "My marriage is already over. You can't go back from this." Raquel said that she seemed more sure than ever about divorcing her husband, which made her disappearance obviously even more frightening. Dee's brother Greg would then question Dale himself, asking, "What the hell is going on here, Dale?" Dale allegedly told him that him and Dee had a fight the night of April 24th. But afterwards, he gave her a back rub and she fell asleep on the floor. And Dale said he then picked her up, put her on the couch, and he went to bed. He said the next morning he got up around 6:30 to do some of the farm chores and that Dee was still asleep on the couch. So he said he went out, he did the farm chores, and when he returned, her wedding ring was actually on his desk. And he thought that she had just walked out while he was working. He said that she left with her purse, her travel bag, her phone, her curling iron, and so she just left of her own free will. When Dale stated that she just up and left, Dee's family was saying that the cars were still in the driveway. Her Escalade was in the garage, and her Hummer was in the driveway. So Greg was wondering if maybe someone picked her up because he knew his sister would not have walked anywhere. That just was not like her, especially when she has 2 vehicles she could take. So from the surveillance footage, they began to look again to see if possibly there was any car that could have picked her up, but there was none seen coming or going that morning. The only thing that it really showed was Dale on the property around 7 a.m. using the front loader, and at 7:45 he had texted Dee saying that he was going to go out spraying. He left about 3 minutes later with the sprayer, and he returned at 8:13 in the morning. Dale was insisting that Dee must have run away to Mexico or to Jamaica after their fight. Dee also, according to Dale, had this second phone, a secret phone that she didn't know he knew about. While Dale said that he had no idea how or why she left, Greg told the police about his feelings for Dale. He said that during Dale and Dee's wedding, that it was very beautiful. Dale seemed like he kind of had this puppy love about him. And Raquel was stating that she grew up with Dale as her stepfather. She was about 10 when they got together. And she said that the marriage was more full of business than love. She said it always kind of led to fights that were never pretty. And as she got older, her mother was confiding in her a bit more about the relationship. And once when they were watching Dateline, which Dee did pretty much every night, Dee mentioned he could do something like that to me. So the Lenawee County Sheriff's Office were informed about this case, and the investigation began, and they would uncover that the last people to see Dee the day prior was actually a family friend who had come to pick up Angelina that 24th, so she wasn't in the middle of a fight. Now, we'll get into a little bit more as to why she even knew this was going to happen in a bit. But around 11 p.m. that night was when all communication with Dee stopped. There was no activity on her bank accounts. Her cell phone showed no activity and appeared as though it had gone dead. And investigators were working on getting a search warrant for the property where she lived. Dee's brother Greg was calling all of her friends. He wanted to know if someone possibly gave her a ride somewhere or knew where she was, but everyone was just as shocked to hear that she had vanished. So searches were conducted on the property, but nothing was being found. It was believed that Dee had gone missing between 7:42 p.m. on the 24th and 10 a.m. on the 25th. The day prior, Dee was found to have gone to an eyelash appointment with an esthetician named Kelly Jo. Kelly would state that when Dee arrived, she was crying and her eyes were extremely puffy. And she had told Kelly she had a disagreement with her husband, and so Kelly kind of calmed her down. Dee was also said to visit her older children's homes that day, and she took her youngest daughter to a soccer game before she came home with Angelina and was going to discuss divorce with her husband. While some speculated that Dee did leave to escape her marriage or possibly even took her life, her brother Greg was adamant that they had a rocky marriage, but her demeanor was more likely to set the house on fire on the way out and not just leave, not just disappear or take her life. He said she was a scrapper. 4 days later, Dale agreed to speak to the police at his kitchen table, and he said that they had had an argument over the phone that day, the day prior to her missing. Basically, Dee was saying that Dale was talking about her behind her back to the employees, and Dale denied this. She hung up the phone, and then they were talking about that argument again that night, and Dee stated, allegedly, according to Dale, that if he didn't care about her and nobody cared about her, why would it matter if she was even there? Dale had told several different versions of the story from that night to different people, and he kept showing everybody Dee's wedding ring that she allegedly left behind.
I hear your wife is missing?
Well, I don't know if she's missing or if she just left. She's gone. She took all her bags, so somebody picked her up. So she's with someone somewhere.
Dee's family learned soon after this that she was having an affair, and the police identified this affair partner, and he was said to actually be out of town at the time of the disappearance. So he was never believed to be a suspect in her disappearance. But 6 weeks into the investigation, Greg told Dale he believed he was a liar and that he was going to get him. Now, 6 months after the disappearance, the Lenawee County Sheriff Troy Bavar brought in the Michigan State Police and the FBI to help search the property of the Warners. At this point, investigators conducted numerous digs. They used ground-penetrating radar to search the property, and they were unable to locate this evidence. Dee was still missing, and almost a year after she vanished, authorities issued new search warrants. Her family was now offering a $50,000 reward, and they no longer believed that she was alive, so they wanted help to find her remains. At this point, Greg made a statement announcing that he had hired a team of private investigators, including 2 homicide detectives, a criminal attorney, and a criminal psychologist. They claimed that due to the ground on the property of the Warners being bare and the leaves off the trees, that possibly a disturbed area where a body could have been buried could now be uncovered. So they were asking for people to pay special attention to the area around 3 to 4 miles around the Warner residence. Another statement from Greg was made soon after, and Greg said, "I am very disturbed that as of late yesterday, Dale Warner continues to make claims that he believes Dee is in Jamaica, Mexico, or Cancun. I find it even more disturbing that he has done and continues to do nothing to find her." They then extended this reward to those areas that he spoke about as well, and Greg concluded with, "The 1 year is quickly approaching. Please help us bring this horrible event to an end." Now, in November of 2021, Greg said that law enforcement had been tight-lipped about the investigation, leaving the family with lots of questions. They held a vigil for Dee around this time where Greg said that he didn't want to interfere with the investigation, but he found it important to clarify a few things. He said, "It is my opinion that valuable time was lost while authorities pursued the unlikely story that Dee left without a car, without any note for her family saying goodbye, which would not be of her character at all." So their private investigator was a man named Billy Little, and he was working with the family to possibly present a wrongful death case. He was known to believe that even if there was no body, a case could still be tried. So this PI interviewed about 100 witnesses, including Dee's friend, who had picked Angelina up that day and took her home. Dee had called her and told her it was the final straw with Dale. She was going to tell her husband it was over. And she was so upset that day. She was throwing up. She was crying. And then she said she was going to get her lashes done. So the PI went and spoke to this esthetician, Kelly Jo, who remembered that Dee's phone kept ringing. And because she had her eyes closed, she would ask Kelly who was calling, and it was Dale. And Dee refused to answer it. She said that she would just get upset again, and Kelly had just calmed her down enough to get the eyelashes on. But after they were done with the eyelashes, Dee made 2 future appointments. Now, while Dale had originally said that there was an argument between the 2 of them the night she vanished, Sheriff Bavar stated that he had heard from Dale that there was an argument between Dee, Dale, and 2 of their employees that night. The PI also heard that Dale at one point said that Dee must have run off with a guy who had more money than him because she was so into the money thing, and that she allegedly went to Australia with him. Though her passport, missing, had never been used. One of their employees did come forward to say that the day prior to vanishing, Dee had asked her how to block a man on their Facebook page because he had quit. But that was the last time that she spoke to her.
This is about a wrong that needs to be gotten right. It's a difficult position for our family because keep in mind that this is a close-knit community. We know all these people, including the person my sister was married to. Known them for a long time. So it's painful for us, me personally and us as a family, to have to do what we're doing.
Part of her escape plan was to purchase a lake house just down the road here. Right? She tried to do that without Dale knowing about it. Dale found out about it. Right? So she knew that this was going to end at some point, and she was trying to figure out how to get out of it safely. Right? But he was keeping tabs on her, tabs on all of her movements, on her financial stuff. She would try to do things to keep herself safe. It was just not possible in that relationship. So she tried to have an escape plan, and not to go to Mexico or Jamaica, an escape plan to go 5 miles down the road, right? Just to get out of that situation. There had been a history of abuse, of violence.
Unfortunately, I didn't recognize this when I could have. And my sister, in all fairness, was a very strong woman who didn't really want to admit this kind of a problem. I'm convinced of that now. I didn't know it then. I didn't have any idea. But I believe she was, as I've now learned about abused people in marriages, that they sometimes think they can fix it, try to fix it, are afraid to admit it, don't want the social impact of it. In her case, don't want the business impact of it. Left herself without anyone helping her in a very difficult situation. I always said that she could be in an argument with you today and be hugging you tomorrow. And that truly is her. Something has happened here that's dreadfully wrong, and somebody has to be responsible for it, and we think we know who that is. And so when we get to that point, and that actually takes place, that will be the justice point. But not till then.
Now, officially a year missing, Sheriff Bevar announced that they had not ruled anyone out, but he could say that Dale Warner was aware he is the primary person of interest, and they had interviewed him numerous times. By August 1st of 2022, a year and 4 months missing, the Michigan State Police became the lead agency in this investigation. Now, Greg stated that the family had some worries about the progress of Dee's case under the Lenawee County Sheriff's Office. They were becoming concerned that there were some things missing and maybe not done as thoroughly as it needed to be. He said that the family had even been a bit vilified for participating and that they were being called a little bit pushy for demanding too much. He said that it had been over a year and that the public was demanding it too. It wasn't just them, so they were very happy with the state police taking over. The next month, Dee's family filed a petition to establish death. They stated that they had come to the conclusion that Dee Warner is deceased. By 2023, a judge actually ruled that Dale could not sell his and Dee's assets. Now, Dale did so anyway, so he was arrested for contempt of court. He was then arrested again for contempt for not cooperating with Dee's conservator for her estate. Her brother, Greg, was her conservator and filed these charges against him, stating that he was trying to divert her assets and withholding the documents showing that he was selling them. Now, Dale was released from jail during this time, but he would have to be involved in the death hearing for Dee, and he took the stand in court saying that he had no objection to the petition to legally declare her dead. While the family prepared for this wrongful death suit, they needed a body. But Dale continued to say through his lawyer that he was innocent and that he misses his wife. He said that there was no evidence she was not alive and that he hopes that she returns home. Oddly enough, Dale's attorney also said that Dale was wearing his Apple Watch at the time of Dee's alleged disappearance, and his biomechanics showed no signs of stress. Many searches began in various sites in Michigan for clues in this disappearance. Excavators were digging up farm fields on the Warner property, as well as properties that they had access to with cadaver dogs on site. It was said to be about 4,000 miles that were searched. Dale Warner was actually on site and he was asked to leave, and he did so. Michigan State Police said that they were acting on tips, and Dee's family announced that the exact location where they were searching at this point was where a home once stood back when Dee vanished, that caught on fire not long after she had vanished. Then, shortly after, her brother Greg's barn caught fire. This was actually two of them, a show barn and a maternity barn for cattle, and the fire lost him 20 cattle. The family believes that it wasn't an accident. A friend said that the fire department had ruled out electrical spontaneous combustion, so the family believed that arson was involved. Dale was then sentenced for those contempt charges and sentenced to 93 days in jail, 6 months probation, and a $7,500 fine. But then on November 21st of 2023, 2 years and 7 months since Dee vanished, an arrest was made. None other than Dale Warner was charged with murder and tampering with evidence. His bond was set at $20 million. However, no body had been found. During Dale's arraignment, Dee's family sat in the courtroom. They said that it was one step closer to justice, and they were excited because they were ready for the guardianship hearing when it came to Angelina, who had been in Dale's custody this whole time, that they could now take custody for. And Greg at this time said that he had been tough on law enforcement, but now he wanted to thank them. Then the judge actually lowered Dale's bond to $15 million with the possibility of release if he posts 10% and then has GPS monitoring. While awaiting if there would be a trial in March of 2024, almost 3 years since the disappearance and alleged murder, Dee Warner was legally declared dead. More searches were conducted of the family property, and a preliminary hearing was held to determine if there was enough evidence to move forward with a trial. One of Dee's longtime friends, Amy Alexander, spoke about the turbulent relationship between Dee and Dale and a lot of verbal fighting. Dee's daughter spoke about how her mother was unhappy in the marriage and they would often fight. She said that Dee would hide her phone away from her husband, and Raquel also remembered that when she had gone there that Sunday morning for breakfast, she saw tire tracks at the back of the home leading to the sliding glass door. She found that was strange, but this area was not covered by surveillance cameras, so it was unknown what happened.
Tell us how you knew Dee Warner.
She was my mom. I have 3 kids.
Okay, and as of April 2021, how many did you have?
2.
And was Dee involved in their lives?
Yes, she was my daycare, basically. I lived at my dad's house.
Okay, and how far is that from the Munger property?
3 miles, maybe?
So is it fair to say you saw your mom almost every day?
I would say that's pretty fair, yes.
Were you able to observe the relationship between your mom and Dale?
Yes.
How-
Business partners.
Okay. Did you see any contention between your mom and Dale during that time?
Yelling. My mom was a yeller. There was a lot of yelling. There was a lot of cussing, slamming things, maybe.
Okay.
Irritation.
Was your mom happy in the marriage?
No.
Were you aware of him tracking the Hummer?
Yes.
Okay, how were you aware of that?
She showed me the tracking device.
In the months leading up to April, did she talk with you about divorce?
Yes. Divorce was a common conversation she had. But more specifically, the day before, on April 24th, she was absolutely ready to file for divorce.
Objection, speculation.
My mom was very upset because of a fight that happened with some employees. Some text message that she got that Dale was talking to an employee's wife about how my mom takes Xanax every day, and my mom felt and always felt like he never had her back. She said her marriage was already over and she was gonna divorce him. She said, I don't even have the energy to pack my bags. One of the last things that my mom said to me was, I watch Dateline like every night and he could do something like that to me.
What did you take that to mean?
Make her disappear.
Would you describe Dale as a calm person?
Depending on who we wanted to be calm in front of. We went to go have breakfast and my mom and I grocery shopped on Sundays.
Did your plans change for the day at that point?
Yes. I started searching for her and calling people. I went back down to the office. I thought my little sister was in there listening to them fight. Dale called me. He asked me if I talked to my mom and that she was mad at him for the fight that happened.
Is there anything that caught your attention when you went upstairs?
There's a mock door, looks like a bookshelf, leads to an attic, and the door was open with items that were on the shelf that were on the ground.
Did you know your mom to have a burner phone?
No. He said that she was leaving in the middle of the night and he didn't know where she was going.
Were you aware of that conduct if it ever took place?
No. He said how my mom has ruined his life. She's always trying to ruin his life. He said everything I've worked for is gone.
Okay. And did you know what that meant at that time?
No.
After your mom went missing, did you have a phone conversation?
Yes. At one point he reread their vows to her.
You personally never heard Miss Warner say she was scared of Mr. Warner.
Except for the last comment she made to me.
And you have no personal knowledge of where your mother is?
No.
This is when it was learned that Dee's adult son, Zach, actually kept the books for the businesses, and Zach testified about their farming business losing lots of money. Money often had to be transferred from their other businesses because it was difficult to make payroll. Zach said that he spoke to his mother before she vanished about the finances, and she was making future plans with her businesses in her name, so the trucking business specifically. But the day prior to her disappearance, she had actually texted him, I'm done with this. I'm signing everything over to you. I'm done with it. Now, Detective Sergeant Daniel Dwyer testified that there was no physical evidence of a murder in regard to Dee, and that Dale told him that he believed his wife was with a drug cartel. in Jamaica. The detective then told the court that the investigation had uncovered incidents of physical violence between Dale and Dee. On June 7th of 2024, the judge ruled that there was enough evidence for Dale Warner to be tried for the murder of his wife, Dee. On August 16th of 2024, Dee's family were notified of a search warrant at the Warner property. They were then informed that human remains had been found. More testing was needed for positive identification, but these remains were not buried. Human remains had been found in a sealed tank meant for ammonia used in fertilizer for crops. Though chemicals were not actually inside the tank when it was found, it was sealed shut with a tag that said "Do not use." An X-ray of the tank had shown that there was a body inside. The family were in disbelief. Greg said that it was so far-fetched that nobody could have dreamed that up. But Greg was actually a huge factor in this discovery because the Michigan State Police had shared some information with him, and it made him remember this tank that he had noticed on the property shortly after his sister went missing. So an autopsy was conducted, and 5 days after they were found, the human remains were identified as Dee Warner. Her death was ruled a homicide, although the manner, while confirmed, is being withheld pending further investigation. The medical examiner stated that it was a perfect match with dental records.
Thank you all for coming. We certainly have positively identified my sister. There's no variance in it. It's 100%, so there's nothing to not accept as fact. There's a little misunderstanding regarding some comments that have been made about the cause of death. There is one. I'm not going to be talking about it. That's up to the authorities to discuss that issue. This has been, as you know, a damn long effort. The issue has been a lot of hard work by authorities, by my family, by hundreds and hundreds of people. You know, the old story goes, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And there's certainly been a little luck here. And it's so damn lucky, I'm not sure there wasn't some divine interference, but we'll see, okay? The point of it is we've gotten here with having found her body, and it was honestly unexpected after 3.5 years. The centerpiece of what we've done has been based on truth and then striving for justice. And that's what we've really accomplished here. We got the last leg to get done, and that's the justice part. But we have stuck to the truth. We've stuck to the facts. And although we've been criticized up and down and around by lots of people, we've only functioned with those two factors, and then we're expecting to get justice, and I believe we will. Certainly tough for the family to face my sister's remains in a man-made tomb done by Dale Warner, who was a very evil piece of human debris. And if you didn't like that, you wouldn't want to know what I really want to call him. He viciously killed my sister with no remorse, continued to have no remorse, damaged his family, damaged the community, and most importantly, he fed his own daughter terrible lies about her sisters, their family. And I don't know, for me, that's almost up in there with killing someone when you do that to a little girl intentionally. Knowingly what he did, he continued to do that. That's unexcusable, and that's what gets him to the highest level of evil. And I certainly hope that he faces the absolute maximum penalty under the law after he's had a fair and just trial, if that's what he chooses.
On behalf of my siblings, we just want to thank everybody for the continued support. We cannot begin to thank you guys enough for sticking by our side and believing in us when we didn't want to believe in ourselves anymore.
I would love for the public to be able to know everything that I know about this horrendous situation. You know, this is totally premeditated, in my opinion. To kill your wife and tomb her in a steel tube to attempt to hide her forever from not only the public and her other, but maybe from some of his family members who may or may not have knowledge. That's insane. I mean, that's a huge, huge, very, very evil person to do that. I mean, you obviously have no remorse if you can do that. I think it'll be a pretty strong trial, and I can't wait. I noticed the tank, because remember, we were integrally involved with my sister's operation. The thing that made us stick in our brain to remember it was the fact that it was so out of character for Warner to be doing what he was doing. And had we not known him personally and known his habits, which obviously the investigators wouldn't know, right? But we knew those habits, we knew those traits that he showed, and we kept it in our brains for 3.5 years.
But the case seemed to get even more twisted after this, because 7 months later, in March of 2025, another arrest was made. This was a man named Jaron Warner, Dale's son and Dee's stepson. The 28-year-old was arraigned on charges of tampering with evidence and accessory after the fact. His bond was $125,000. Greg stated that he had always believed that Jaron had information and was hoping that he would be arrested. In the body cam footage of his arrest, Jaron seemed surprised.
Hey, Jaron. Yeah, changed up a little bit. Is here with you? Okay. We got a warrant for your arrest, buddy. Put your hands behind your back.
Are you serious?
Yep.
Are you serious right now?
I'll explain everything to you. Just give us a minute, okay? After we found the body, you know, you probably hate me, and that's fine. I don't blame you, but I've always been truthful with you. And I told you that day that you knew certain things about that tank, and that it was the right thing to do to talk to me about it. You took actions after the homicide that you now know and should have known, likely, that it was after a crime occurred. I've been truthful with you. Your dad has put you in really spots throughout this, and unfortunately you continue to let him to do that.
However, months later in May of 2025, the charges against him were dismissed due to authorities being unable to locate and serve a necessary witness. The document basically stated that the charges would be reissued at a later date if or when this witness was located. Now, we'll come back to who we believe this witness is in a moment. But that same month, Dee's children sued Dale Warner for $100 million in relation to her disappearance and death. This argues that the family is entitled to compensation for loss of society, pain and suffering, exemplary damages, and all damages recoverable. By December of 2025, another arrest was made in connection to this case. This was a man named Kevin Greca. He was a retired detective who was the lead investigator on this case from the very beginning. But he had retired in 2024 and had since become a fugitive. He was taken into custody by the U.S. Marshals after Michigan authorities sought to serve him as a material witness in this case, and he allegedly fled the state to avoid testifying. It was believed that prosecutors viewed his testimony as crucial. Now, it was not confirmed that this was the missing witness that allowed Jaron Warner to be released, but it was an odd similarity, and many were very confused as to why he would flee. Now, Kevin Greca himself said that he was already out of Michigan when they tried to serve him and that he was never running. Greg stated that Kevin Greca was avoiding this and he had no idea why. He said, "Why would you, as a detective, not be willing to be forthright, honest, tell the truth about your involvement and any other questions they had for you? It's very simple. This shouldn't be complex." Dale's trial was set to begin on January 27th of 2026. However, on January 6th, a pretrial hearing appeared on the court docket for Dale Warner. Rumors of a potential plea deal emerged. However, the family members arrived at this courthouse and they were told that it was just a clerical error. So it's said that his trial is going to start in a few weeks. A strange ending to an even stranger case, but it's not even yet the end. A trial is to come, but this is all of the information that we have prior to that. Do you want a video on the information provided in the trial? Is that something you would enjoy? If so, subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. What do you think really happened to Dee? Was Dale's son involved in this? Did they possibly have a connection to this lead investigator in the case? Is that why he fled? Is that just a misunderstanding? Or what other reason would this lead investigator have not to show up or at least accept this subpoena when that is a known duty of a police officer. Unless, of course, he had something to hide. Very glad that the family has finally received news of where Dee Warner and her remains are, and they were able to go and lay her to rest. For a very long time, it seems that her family knew that she was no longer with them, and so for them, this was the outcome that they were hoping for in order to find her. And I just hope that justice is served. We will know hopefully within the next few months. Again, let me know if you want me to dive deep and cover that trial as it comes out. I'm sure we will learn so much more information and hopefully get a conviction for this husband. But thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you so incredibly much. If you missed the last video, go and check that out. It is a live stream that occurred a day after a teen murdered his classmates, and it's heartbreaking, and there was a lot of things that could have been different in that case that unfortunately were not. So I'll link that down below. Don't forget to speak up. Your voice is powerful enough, and I love you to absolute pieces. Okay, bye.